Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. 5 supervised drug consumption sites in Toronto are set to close after the province announced today it is banning these sites near schools and childcare centres. Supervised consumption sites allow those struggling with addiction to use drugs under supervision to reduce the risk of overdose. And there are concerns tonight that the closures could have deadly consequences. Our municipal affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has more.
Most days, Toronto Public Health site called The Works serves a steady stream of clients. But the supervised consumption site in the heart of downtown Toronto is one of 5 slated for closure because of a new provincial policy. Ontario's health minister says the sites will no longer be allowed within 200 meters of schools or childcare centres. Sylvia Jones says the sites aren't working and she won't approve any more.
It feels like every day we turn on the news and learn more about the tragic outcome of an approach that accepts and promotes the use of illegal drugs over treatment and recovery.
Toronto's 10 supervised consumption sites allow people to take drugs under supervision to reduce the risk of overdose and death. They were created in response to the overdose and toxic drug crisis. According to preliminary figures released by Public Health, 524 people died from opioid toxicity in the city last year. But Jones says that the sites are contributing to higher crime rates and making neighbors feel unsafe. The province will instead spend nearly $380 million to create 19 new addiction treatment hubs.
I want to be clear. They will not provide safe supply, supervised drug consumption, or needle exchange programs.
But the decision was met with swift condemnation at City Hall. The chair of Toronto's Board of Health says the closures will push drug use into public spaces and see more people end up in emergency rooms.
We know that safe consumption sites do save lives. People are in a safe space with professionals supervising the drug use. And there are many overdoses that take place in those facilities, and they do save lives.
This harm reduction worker says the policy has her angry and scared.
It's really serious. We're playing politics with people's lives, and the result of that will be death.
Minister Jones says that the safe consumption sites that are impacted by the ban can apply to transition to the new treatment hub model. It's not entirely clear if the Toronto sites will pursue that option. Meanwhile, if they don't, they'll have to close at the end of March 2025. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Today's announcement follows a review of the safe consumption sites ordered after a woman was hit by a stray bullet near one of the sites last July. Dale Mnukduk joins us live from outside the South Riverdale Community Health Centre in Leslieville. And Dale, some in that community had been pushing for this exact change.
That's right, Kelda. 44-year-old Caroline Hubner-Macarat was killed here on Queen Street East, caught in the crossfire of a shootout. Now, on the other side of the street, it's behind the TTC streetcar, which is just moving out of the way now, is the South Riverdale Community Health Center. It houses several health services, including a safe consumption site. And I'll bring you over this way on the southwest corner of the intersection. Behind that tree, it's that 3-story high brown building. That is the Morse Street Junior Public School. It's about 150 meters away from the safe consumption site, which, according to these new rules, is too close and will have to close. Now, residents in this area, they've been noting that for years.
On July 7, 2023, Caroline Hubner-Macarat was hit by a stray bullet after a fight broke out by alleged drug dealers. The mother of 2 died in hospital. It sent shockwaves through Leslieville. Residents who have been raising concerns over the nearby safe consumption site prior to her death kicked their advocacy into high gear.
It's not unreasonable that a service like this be located a certain distance away from schools and daycares. That's not unreasonable. Cannabis stores can't be within a certain distance. This shouldn't be either. 3
people have been arrested in connection to the murder, one of whom worked at the consumption and treatment service site. According to locals, the site has transformed the fabric of the neighborhood since it started operating in 2017.
I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober for quite a while, and I teach a group on how to stay sober. So I believe that it's necessary to have the harm reduction. But when you let these people out into the streets and they're in a state where they're not really able to take care of themselves, like I see them falling asleep in the laneways, I see them falling asleep on Queen Street.
There's also the issue of drug paraphernalia and opioids left on the ground. Business owners say there have been increasing break-ins and vandalism.
This has never been about like, oh, just NIMBY it out of here. This is a lack of oversight and a lack of running this program and this service properly or in the right location.
The health center says it's reviewing the announcement. In a statement, the director of community engagement says, "Our focus is on ensuring we have a plan in place for providing continued compassionate care to the clients we serve, support for our dedicated staff, and dialogue with our neighbors."
I've tested dope here before, and there's 5 benzos, right? 5 benzos, 3 tranks.
This client, who CBC agreed to not identify, says the services at the site, including drug checking, saves lives. He says he's not one of the people discarding needles around the building.
We walk around every morning and we pick them up, right? If they are them. Just because you're a user doesn't mean you have to be a loser and drop your shit around, right? Because we all have kids, grandkids.
Kelda, after Caroline Huebner-Macarat was killed, the province did ask Unity Health to conduct an external review of the safe consumption site. Unity concluded that it was meeting service requirements, that it is suitable to maintain provincial funding, and that it belongs in a community health center. But none of that seems to matter. It does, however, have the chance to exist in some capacity. According to Health Minister Sylvia Jones, it can apply to be one of these new heart hubs. That's a homelessness, addiction, and recovery treatment hub, but it just won't be able to offer any drug consumption services or needle exchange programs. We'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Dale. That's Dale Manukduk reporting in Leslieville tonight. Toronto Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of up to $5,000 for tips on auto thefts that lead to arrests.
These are not just property crimes. These crimes impact people's sense of safety, security, and have lasting impacts on families and communities touched by these violent acts.
The Auto Theft Awareness Campaign will last until September 30th. Toronto police data show a 25% increase in incidents related to auto thefts in 2023 compared to 2022. DemQ says last year, anonymous tips led to arrests involving millions of dollars worth of stolen property and over 42 recovered vehicles. A new report indicates small businesses across the country are being severely impacted by construction. Now, businesses that were polled say they've experienced a general drop in revenue while incurring thousands of dollars in extra expenses, including cleaning and repairs. Tyler Cheese checks in with local business owners to find out more.
Louis Coffee is a quiet cafe on King Street West, just east of Dufferin. It sits along a stretch of street that's been under construction since February and not set to be completed until November.
Just generally a little slower. It's just more disruptive during the weekdays when you have a lot of the construction going on, obviously. It's about a lot of noise. Noticeably worse when it gets to rain. We see big splashes of water coming over the sidewalks.
The shop's owner says it's hard to predict on any given day how many customers are going to be able to come by.
And sometimes there's sudden closures where they have to do sudden excavating or whatnot, so it closes off the sidewalk, so access is a little bit limited sometimes.
Just down the street and around the corner, Liberty Eats has been facing many of the same issues.
Our sales drop almost like a 50% because they move the streetcar to other side and then people can't walk in.
And it's not just about the customers. He says delivery app drivers avoid the area due to congestion caused by the construction.
We are a takeout business, so we mainly depend on the delivery partners, app and other stuff.
These are just some of the issues small businesses are facing as long-term projects become more frequent.
Parking issues, that's a big problem. What about suppliers and logistics? How do your suppliers actually deliver your goods to you? And some businesses, customers don't even know that they're open.
According to a new report from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, construction disruptions have increased 27% since 2018.
In Ontario, 304,000 small businesses were impacted in some way by construction over the past 5 years. And of that number, over 104,000 Ontario small businesses were impacted in a major way.
The advocacy group is calling on all levels of government to create financial support funds for small businesses affected by longer construction projects, something that's already been implemented in other municipalities, including Montreal. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto Argonauts quarterback Chad Kelly broke his silence today after being reinstated by the CFL. The star player was reinstated over the weekend after being suspended in May for violating the league's gender-based violence policy. The suspension had stemmed from an investigation into sexual harassment against a female Argos staffer. Chris Glover has more on what Kelly is saying and the reaction.
Back at practice and pitching himself as a changed man, Argos quarterback Chad Kelly apologizes following allegations of sexual harassment.
I'm sorry for my actions. I'm sorry for what I did.
On Sunday, the CFL reinstated the star player in what it called a last chance agreement with conditions that were not disclosed. He was suspended in May for violating the league's gender-based violence policy.
I've learned from it. I've done more than what is being asked for me because I want to get it right. I want to make sure everybody believes that, I'm never going to do something like this again.
The league suspension came following a lawsuit filed by a former strength and conditioning coach accusing Kelly of sexual harassment, citing unwanted romantic advances escalating to threatening language. The lawsuit was settled through mediation in June, but at first, Kelly denied the allegations.
Why did you lie in the first place?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that, over the course of, these months, you come to realize what actually had been done.
Chad Kelly is going to have to wear this for the rest of his life.
Labor lawyer and former CFL All-Star Jock Climby says the punishment against Kelly is significant, superseding what an average employee would face.
What's promising here is that the league and the Argos have taken such proactive steps to address this that and it's been so public that message has been delivered. And I think you're going to see players take heed.
MLSE says it's now implementing a discrimination and harassment program for all players and staff to protect against this issue occurring in the future, said MLSE CEO Keith Pelly.
Chad's sincerely apologizing. He's going through the process of getting better and learning from this mistake.
Kelly has previously dealt with legal issues as well. In 2018, he was cut by the Denver Broncos a day after being arrested. Kelly reportedly pleaded guilty to a trespassing misdemeanor connected to an incident following a team party.
Jubilation for that man, Chad Kelly, and the Toronto Argonauts. What a finish.
By 2022, he was leading the Argos to Grey Cup glory. Then last year named the CFL's most outstanding player and signing a contract extension, making him the highest paid player in league history. So far, without him this season, the Argos are having a mediocre 5-4 record.
The higher the athlete's reputation, the more we tend to put it aside and silence the issue that's happening.
Kim Dubé researches gender-based violence in sports and isn't surprised Kelly's suspension was lifted.
I do agree that we need to move on at some point, but silencing it and putting it aside is not necessarily moving on or using the platform to promote a culture of consent.
Now that the team and league have given him a green light, it's over to fans on Thursday. He'll be back in front of them for his first game back. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. A 79-year-old woman has been sentenced to house arrest in London, Ontario. The retired teacher was convicted of driving her car into a group of Girl Guides in 2021, killing an 8-year-old. Megan Fitzpatrick has the details.
Petronella McNorgan was not sentenced to time in prison today. She was sentenced to 2 years less a day of house arrest plus 3 years probation after that. During that time, she will not be allowed to drive and she will not be permitted to leave her house except under certain circumstances like medical appointments or legal appointments. The judge saying that's as far as she could go in terms of the prohibition on driving, though she believed that McNorgan should never be allowed to drive ever again. The Crown had asked for a 4-year prison sentence. The defense had argued she should not spend any time behind bars and instead be given a period of probation. The sentencing hearing was held back in June, and that is when the judge and court heard victim impact statements read by the parents of the little girl who died, as well as other victims who were injured in the crash. They talked about the severe impact on their lives, the pain over losing their little girl. McNorgan McNorgan also read a statement during that hearing, apologizing for the pain and anguish she said resulted from this tragedy, and that she would never intentionally hurt anyone. There were more than 50 letters of support submitted for McNorgan from family members, former students. She's a retired teacher, urging the judge for leniency, describing her as a loving, law-abiding mother and grandmother. Now, the jury had found her guilty in April of 1 count of criminal negligence causing death, 7 counts of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. The judge had said today that listening to those victim impact statements was heartbreaking, and she also took issue with McNorgan's apology, saying it didn't fully take responsibility for her actions that night. So she did take that into consideration in making her decision, but she also weighed McNorgan's age. She's 79 now. She was 76 at the time. Her health, she does have cancer. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2022, and the fact that she had no prior criminal record. These were the factors that were weighed by the judge, she said in her decision this morning. After court, McNorgan's defense lawyer, Philip Miller, explaining that McNorgan is actually appealing those 8 convictions, and the paperwork's already been filed in court for those appeals, and that he was expecting later today for McNorgan to be granted new conditions, new release conditions that would not include house arrest. It would still include that prohibition on driving. So the house arrest sentence not expected to start immediately, pending the outcome of the appeal of those convictions. He was asked if his client is relieved that she was not sent to prison today. He said yes, but that she's still traumatized by this whole experience, and that she and her family are still coping with the fact she was convicted in the first place. Here's more from her lawyer.
For 76, 79 years has been almost a perfect citizen. Like, kids are still reaching out who were her students with love, doesn't have an aggressive bone in her body. To go to jail, I think everybody feels like it seems wrong, but there are people who want people to go to jail for that circumstance. And so society is struggling with that. But definitely the family is relieved that they're not seeing their mother, grandmother, or wife, especially for Jerry. Jerry just, I think if she had gone to jail, that both of them would be dead soon thereafter.
Now, the parents of the little girl who died did not speak to reporters after court. They were in the court to hear the decision read, along with other loved ones, supporters in court, some of them wearing Girl Guide pins. So it was an emotional day, surely, in the courtroom, and this story is not completely over just yet for the families and everyone affected by this, given the fact that McNorgan is appealing these convictions. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
Time is running out to avoid a shutdown of Canada's national railways. With just 2 days to go, many businesses are bracing for the worst. The union, which represents about 9,300 people, says workers are ready to walk off the job on Thursday. CN Rail and Canadian Pacific Kansas City say they'll lock workers out at the same time. Both sides accuse the other of bad faith bargaining. The federal labor minister says he met with all sides today and will do so again tomorrow. Meanwhile, York University has reached a tentative deal with the union, representing close to 1,700 faculty members, librarians, and archivists. If the union votes to ratify the deal, its collective agreement with the university would be extended until April 30th, 2027. The new agreement includes wage increases of 3.1% in the first year and 2.85% in each of the 2 subsequent years. It's not clear whether class sizes or campus restructuring were addressed in the new agreement. A zoo in New York has welcomed a new bundle of joy. The tiny critter weighed less than a kilogram when it was born and will only weigh as much as a large watermelon as an adult. The International Union for Conservation of Nature has designated the species called the southern pudu as near threatened. Native to Chile and Argentina, its population has been decreasing because of land development and invasive species. For now, the newborn fawn will live with his parents at the zoo in Queens. There are 2 other pudus at a zoo in nearby Brooklyn, so you can count on a play date coming pretty soon. Chris Potter joining us now. And Chris, warmer temperatures are on the way.
Yeah, just around the corner. But if you're not a fan of the heat, obviously today was a day for you. It kind of felt like early fall or early autumn as opposed to late August. Normal daytime high for this time of year is closer to 25. Normal overnight low is close to 14. So we're going to see values below that for tonight's overnight low, as well as tomorrow's daytime high and tomorrow night's low as well. Once again, 25. We came up 5 degrees short of that in Toronto. And basically that was the average, about 4 or 5 degrees below normal across the entire region. We're still dealing with a spin of low pressure. It's basically stuck to our east, and that continues to control the winds coming in from the north. That's what's once again causing the cool down. But there's also some showers out there. They will start to fade off the map as we get through the later stages of the evening, but there's still going to be some hit or miss showers, especially on the north end over the next few hours. Once we get into the overnight, we clear back out. And once we get into the day tomorrow, on average, we're mostly sunny, although there will be a little bit more cloud through the afternoon moving in from the north, but that will clear up nicely as we get towards sunset. In terms of what will happen after that, high pressure continues to build in. And it's with the movement of high pressure to our east that will allow more of a southerly wind to develop. And we're still going to be protected from active weather. That's going to be universal for tomorrow across the region, with the exception of eastern Ontario. And that's going to be universal as we get through Friday and possibly into this coming weekend as well. So as I always say, a nice run of sun. Get out there and enjoy the beautiful weather, especially if you're not a fan of the high heat, because tonight we're actually looking at some areas in the high single digits for overnight lows. By tomorrow, daytime highs will be in the low 20s, feeling like the low 20s. And once we get through the day on Thursday and Friday, once again with that developing southwesterly wind, overnight lows are going to start to increase and daytime highs start to increase. So if you are a fan of the heat, it does move back in for this weekend. It doesn't look like 30 degrees or higher, but it will at least feel like 30 degrees or higher as we get into this weekend, Kelda. So nice run of sun, a little bit more cloud for Saturday, maybe the odd shower, but at this point it looks drier rather than wetter, unlike this past weekend where it was very, very wet.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris.
You got it.